Leela, Varanasi was in the spotlight on the campaign trail, not just for the candidates that were on the ballot like Modi, but also the candidates that did not make it onto the ballot.
Absolutely. I mean, Varanasi is sometimes called the religious capital of India. It's, it's the holy city on the banks of the Ganges, and it's the seat from where Narendra Modi ran in 2014 and in 2019, and now he's standing from Varanasi for a third consecutive term. Let's look at the Varanasi vote over the past decade. So when Modi ran in 2014, his main opposition rival was Arjun Kejriwal. Arjun Kejriwal is right now the Delhi chief minister, and he shot into the international news before the election when he was arrested on corruption charges just weeks before the election began. In 2014, Kejriwal won 20% of the vote, and Modi took 56%. In 2019, Modi's vote share rose to 63%. One of his main rivals 5 years ago was Ajay Rai. He's the main opposition party's candidate, and he is running against Modi again this year. Now, while Modi's vote share has increased, what has been notable is the number of candidates that have fallen. In 2014, we had 41 candidates running from the Varanasi constituency, and right now we have just 7 seats. And as you said, the spotlight this year was actually on one particular candidate who did not make it to the ballot box. Somewhat improbably, he's a comedian. And, what started off being a bit of a joke, ended up like good satire, highlighting a pretty important problem and questions.
Yeah, Leela, because a comedian taking on the Prime Minister, I mean, that sounds pretty crazy.
Improbable, yes. People initially didn't know what to make of it. But then the comedian in question is Shyam Rangila. He is famous for his imitations of Prime Minister Narendra Modi that are hilarious. It has audiences in stitches. So when he announced his candidacy, he appeared pretty serious. He made a taped message which he released on X. And Rangila went on to go to Varanasi to file his nomination. What he ended up doing is highlighting all the problems with the nomination process. He had to stand in line for hours, was made to come back the next day, forms were not administered, oaths of office were not administered, and he was not the only one who was going through all these problems. In stark contrast to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who came in on the last day of the nomination filing with a huge entourage, the place was shut down, and a lot of candidates didn't even manage to get their nominations through. 41 candidates initially applied to be the candidate for Varanasi, and only 7 got through. And what Rangila managed to do actually was raise some pretty important questions, which is how free and fair are these elections? Is there a level playing field? And are the rules of the game being applied evenly?
Yeah, and given situations like that one, Leela, I mean, were these elections free and fair?
I mean, it's still early, but one of the things that we can say for sure is this is the first time that, the credibility of India's polls has come under intense scrutiny. First and foremost, there was a crackdown on the opposition before the elections even began with the arrest of Kejriwal, that kind of thing. Secondly, was what Rangila showed to be true. A lot of opposition candidates claiming that they were intimidated by the ruling party. And thirdly, the election commissions, the credibility of the Election Commission's office also came under intense scrutiny, notably for how poorly they policed the codes of conduct of the election and also the appointments of the election commissioners. I mean, one of the problems with the Modi years has been the democratic backsliding and the undermining of democratic institutions. So, these elections have posed a lot of questions.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what the results are as they come in. Leela, thank you so much for that. That's Leela Jacinto, our international affairs editor.